Here we have a Trek Verve. What is a Verve? I don't know. A Verve 3, no less. A Verve is a supersized hybrid. Yep, that's right. It's a hybrid, but along the lines of the 4 different models of hybrids that they made from hybrids from the 90s. Yeah, this has some comfort features like adjustable stem, little shock seat post, so a little bit wider tires, more chunky in a sense than your other hybrids, which are more road efficient. Well, this one is more comfortable and more towards the gravel-ish kind of realm-ish. Any case, it's actually a pretty decent bike. Aluminum frame, aluminum fork, hydraulic, disc brakes. It's in for its tune-up. This is a repeat customer, which, you know, all mechanics love repeat customers because that just means they're doing something right, right? Any case, let's review the Verve while I bring it down for its magic tune-up after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe.
Hey, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy on this old bike. Not so old. Yeah, actually it's only a couple of years old. Maybe 4-ish. I believe it's a 2020 or 2021. This is a customer that I fixed some bikes up during the COVID era, and they got them through like a couple months until they realized what they got on a kind of on a whim used was not quite the right size or what they needed. Correct me if I'm wrong if that's not the right story. Comment below. Dear sir, thank you for returning. This bike has been here before, initial tune-up, once it was purchased, kind of just to make sure everything was going right. And now it's in for its annual tune. Kind of one of those things where if it's done right as a recreational bike and it's done with a high level of attention to detail, a tune-up will last more than 1 year. Bike shops will say annual for every year, just to make sure. And it's a good idea to have a safety check and that kind of thing, which you could do yourself. And there's several videos out there like, what do you need to see? A, B, and C. Check your air, check your brakes, check your chain, make sure all of the bolts are tight, and you're good to go. Well, that's your basic safety check. With a mechanic eye, you might catch something, but if you haven't had any kind of major mishaps, crashes, falls, dingers in the garage, car rack incidents, any of that kind of stuff, it's just out of your garage, onto the path, back into the garage and parked, those basic ABCs will cover you until you're probably about year 2. That being said, yeah, the annual full tune-up might last, the second year. You check the chain, make sure it hasn't stretched, check the pads, make sure they're not compressed all the way down or lost all this material. It all depends what kind of conditions you're in too. I mean, if it's an area where it's a lot of rain, a lot of muck, and you're riding in that kind of conditions, yes, annual. Here it's arid, and we have a lot of blue sky here in Colorado, so a lot of times we're pretty fair weather riders because most of the time it's fair weather. So, needless to say, gonna dive into this. It's my second level tune-up. I have 4 levels. Flying bug or something. Springtime is in the air, and we got bugs, and I may sneeze. Any case, I have a basic tune, which is basically the derailleur's adjustment, brakes adjustments. A lot of bike shops will have that. My level, second level, includes a drivetrain clean and cables being replaced. Since this has hydraulics, I'm not going to replace those. That's kind of a completely different lift. Especially to the newer bike, I don't think it needs to be that, and the brakes don't seem to be an issue. I will clean the brake pads though and pull those out. Now the next level above that for my tune-up packages, basically I have 3, but there is a 4 plus or 3 plus, is detailing the frame, basically going over the frame, so forth. Well, this individual's brought in several bikes for me to tune up, so I'm going to give a little extra something. I'll clean the frame and put a nice ceramic coating on the frame as well as the rims when I do the actual tune-up on this. Get a little added protection, UV protection, as well as make it a little bit easier to clean. And notice it is kind of dirty. And hitting it with a light hose, a lot of this will come off, but once you put like a ceramic coating on the actual frame and the wheels, that will actually just fall right off. and that ceramic coating will last a year, maybe longer. It all depends, again, the conditions and so forth. The chain seems really dry. There's like no lube on it, so we're gonna clean that, clean the derailleurs and the crankset in ultrasonic cleaner, and pull the pads, clean those, clean the frame, polish it, put a little bit of ceramic coating on the bits that could use ceramic coating, and then it's good to go for another season or two. So without further ado, we're just going to dive into this. But yes, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please slam the comments below if you have any particular notes on this particular bike or any bikes I've worked on before. In addition to, in the description, there'll be other resources for you to look at as well. But let's dive into this. But first and foremost, thank you for watching. This has disc brakes and the skewers on the opposite side, so that's pretty common on some models. So we'll pop that. And I believe this has kind of a through axle skewer, which is interesting. Finding out that you can use a standard wheel without a through axle, but yet you're still getting the through axle benefit, which is pretty good for a disc brake. The actual nut portion is fixed on this position here. You're gonna check the hub. Yeah, it's a little grindy, so we're gonna adjust that. They don't have that. It's a standard quick release on the rear. They just did it for the front. Not sure why they didn't do it for the rear, but we'll take a look at that too. And on the disc brakes on these, it has a cotter pin kind of thing. Not a cotter, but it's a pin that's bent down. And to remove that, you'll need some needle-nose pliers. And what you're doing is you're trying to get that thing to be bent back straight and get it underneath there without breaking it. And if you do, you're gonna have to replace it. But basically, straight like this, and those disc pads should just slide right out like a little sandwich. And what we're looking for is that material that you're seeing, that beefiness. We'll clean this up, probably clean the pads and clean them off with rubbing alcohol. And there you have it. But do not hit your brake lever because you'll press those pistons in and then you have to push them back out and reset the brakes, which becomes a super nightmare when you're on a trailhead and kids are screaming in the back, back in the car, and the significant other's getting grumpy with you because you can't figure this out. So take either a piece of cardboard and wedge it in there for transportation reasons, just to keep them, not like push them back, but just to hold its position. That's a good little trick. A lot of bike shops will have those extra little plastic inserts. You should have probably gotten one when you purchased the bike, but if you got it used, that kind of thing, that's a little tip trick there. Onto the back. So you want to dump this down smallest cog. That pulls the derailleur out of the way, that kind of thing. So it's out of its, general vicinity. And like I said, there's a quick release, but they have a lot of extra junk back here, like this little trailer mount. So you want to be mindful of that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to completely unscrew the skewer out, and don't lose track of your little skewer spring. That way I'm not fighting any of this stuff, and I'll clean that. Then case point, I just need to give it a little love tap and it should slide right out. And what are we looking at? That one's actually pretty smooth, so we're pretty good. So we need to adjust the front for sure, but I will be popping this cassette off to clean it. And while we're in this lovely area neck of the woods, we're going to find the Hyperglide, or Hyperglide, old school, Quick Link or Power Link or Linkety-Link, whatever they want to call them. Each brand has its own little saying because, trademarks are trademarks, right? But they all pretty much do the same. It's basically this, using this tool. This is the Park Tool MPLP 1.2. Get the Park one. It's not that expensive. The cheap ones out there, the knockoffs that you'll see like on Amazon and so forth, are junk. This will work well, and you kind of need it because it's grooved correctly. They probably have the patent on it. All right. Oh, wait, nope. We're not doing brakes. Just doing the derailleurs. So let's make sure we cut the derailleur cables and not the brake cables. I gotta get in there. Okay, there we go. Oh boy, that was tight. Yeah, I need an Allen wrench. Okay, dokie. Gonna pop this piece out. A little slam piece there. Wire cables and housing. This little muckety muck area, this gets a lot of contaminants. And cables are really not that expensive, really. And the performance you're going to get out of it is huge. This draws up a lot of moisture, contaminants, and goes inside this housing bit and becomes a little saw inside. So once we replace that, and also the other piece of housing, you might as well there. We'll give this derailleur a lot more love, basically. It'll actually perform a lot better how it's supposed to. You'll line up with those gears more correctly, more snappier feel. That's definitely a benefit to it. And you know, front derailleur could always use a lot of help as you're doing a huge jump up to 3 different gears, 2 different gears. So you got that all clean. This is going to perform a lot better too, and be double checked for, you know, make sure it's done correctly, that kind of thing. This does have a replacement derailleur hanger, so that's a good thing. But we want to double check the hanger once we get the rear wheel all true and ready to go. Make sure it's aligned with those particular cogs. Some shops, not all, don't do that. So especially on new bikes, and I'm pretty sure I do it on every bike I work on. So most likely this is probably okay. But any kind of ipsy daisies in the garage just falls over and bumps this, or a car rack or whatever, you may not be aware. It may have jarred this. This is a softer alloy versus the frame. Reason being is this is designed to break, not your frame. So this is what they call replaceable, hint the reason, replaceable derailleur hanger. That's why they are a softer material. Just in case if you have those boo-boo situations that pushes it too far and they snap. Okay, when we use the alignment tools, sometimes these are more brittle and they snap, so you got to be very careful. I'll probably gauge this one because it has less material. The idea on these guys are like 20, 25 bucks on the cost, and you know, if it's a newer bike and you may have had a problem with these before, you might as well just buy one, throw it in your little pack. You never know. A lot of people think their frame is toast if this breaks. No. But if it's 15 years later and they have a hard time finding this one because it's unique to that particular frame that you bought, especially if it's a niche brand or custom build, you might want to get an extra one and just throw it in your pack. Never know. May need it. Pop ourselves the front derailleur. Man, beautiful day in the neighborhood, right? Finally able to keep the garage door open. And before you know it, it'll be too hot. And I'll be doing my paperwork, digital paperwork, video editing in the afternoons. Yeah, but anywho, I really enjoy what I do. So if you look at this, it's super dirty too. You know, mostly rain gunk. It's not like caked on grease or abused or anything. A good little light spritz of water from the hose, not high pressure, but enough would really kind of shed this off, and just put a little drop of Tri-Flow Superior Lube or some kind of a light lube on the pivots on that, and that would refresh this without waiting to have it tuned up to do so. So this has that crank that has the axle portion through, so you only have one side to adjust and take off, which is kind of nice. External bearings, those are not too expensive to replace if you need to. They're 20, 30 bucks. And this one has spacers, so that's to be mindful that if you do go down that rabbit hole, you'll need to make sure this has 2 on the drive side and 1 on the non-drive side. So you want to make sure you're, you know, don't mess up, because I'll mess up with the chain alignment and possibly frame would be tagged by the crank arms. So we're taking the adjuster out here, and this is the tool where it has a little hooky that pops that little guy up. There's a pin in there that prevents this from sliding out, but also is when you're adjusting and compressing it, that will pop back in to this little hole, and then you know you're engaged enough to lock it down. And these are the 10 to 15 or 12 to 14 Newton meter for the torques on that. So we'll clean this up. and basically just push that through. And there we go. Now we have a clean area to, or a good area to clean. This is a double, so the triple derailleur. Huh, weird, interesting. Interesting. I'm going to pop this plastic off. Little side note on these guys is ultrasonic cleaners will take the darkness off and you'll have this weird thing. So I want to ultrasonic the crank and get all the inside. And there's 4 screws. I'm going to unscrew those, pop that out. I'll wash it, of course, but I'll ultrasonic this because I've had to repaint a few of these because the ultrasonic cleaner just ate the plastic. That's the only plastic I've seen so far that's actually muffed up. Other than that, and we're going to feel, well, the bearings feel good. This is the cables of the derailleurs I'm going to have to thread through. Now I'm going to use a guide to go through the frame here so it pulls through and I'm not going to, you know, lose track of that, even though it'll be pretty easy to thread through. Reason being is I don't want those to get twisted inside there, and it's hard to tell when to do that. So if they're threaded through, they have a straight line, and when you thread it back out, you're fine. If you, sometimes that cable will like to loop through, and then all of a sudden you got shifting that's absolutely crap, and because it's twisted over, man, it doesn't really give you any eye line of sight in here really to see. So that's why I do the threading of the housing piece first to ensure that doesn't happen. So let's clean this. And I do have videos on the cabling bit to show you the extreme. This had definitely some car rack scuffage, so I'm going to clean that up. I can. At this point now, I can start using a rag and purple power to kind of clean, well, definitely clean the surface area to get this to come loose. If you don't have purple power, grime wave from lithium works well. This you can actually spray on. It's designed to clean the inside of the car engine casing area. So you can, it's non-aggressive. You basically put it on there. If you need to use a brush, you can use a brush, and then you just use water to clean that all off, like so. But I like to do the purple power. I dilute it to cut through. Some people are a little bit leery about that stuff because it could be strong if you're not knowing what you're doing. So let's do a little sample here. So that front derailleur, it's all gunked up like this, right? It doesn't take much. I mean, hose water, spritz, maybe a rag to wipe it off, and bam, you're about 80% there. Ultrasonic cleaner gets really into those areas that are hard, and you know, taking it off and also rinse it off in the tank. But you see these little pivots, all these little guys, you just put a little drop of lube on those, a light lube, and I'll refresh your derailleur. Same thing for the rear. So if you need to do a quick little clean lube kind of deal, you don't need super heavy degreasers and so forth, unless it's really caked up by those chain lubes that have a lot of Teflon built up. There you get yourself a mucky muck situation. But you know, if you're using a lighter, you know, this lube is fairly light. It was on there. I'll probably put on a fairly light lube in addition to, which I use quite a bit of the rock and roll for the light lube. But I am into chain waxing deluxe. That's my go-to for all my personal bikes, but it is a heavy lift and some people just don't want to wrap their head around it, which is fine. It is a little bit more of a lift up front, but you know, as long as you're lubing your chain, regardless of drip wax or lube or what have you, as long as there's something on there. That was pretty dry. What dry chains happen, wears out parts. So you don't want to do it for too long. All right. Especially with calipers like this, I'm not spraying directly onto the frame. I typically, I just did an example on the bottom bracket there with grime wave, but with purple power, I don't. It doesn't shed well, in the sense of calipers, and I clean the calipers on the inside with rubbing alcohol, but the surface I'll wipe it down with the purple power to get any kind of gunk off of it. And you see those places where they'll use high pressure water, or you see those videos of the pros are like blowing the thing away. Not good for recreational bikes. Reason being is you got these little seals and so forth, and you don't want to blow water in there and to get caught up. And also the drainage, sometimes they'll drain into the bottom bracket or the headset and get corroded in there, and you don't want that either. So yeah, and the reason why they're doing that, it's most likely they're going to tear those bikes down. Keep in mind, that's a pro setting. It's like the pit of a NASCAR. You don't do that. You don't do that at home. No. You don't have those 8 guys running around your bike going zip, 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 and you're ready to go. Now, you don't have a pro mechanic living in your house, unless it's this house. And, it's one of those things that even then, I don't use high pressure. I used to do it a long time ago with a lot of shops. And now I'm like, those power wash things, it's kind of cool, and they spend a lot of money on them, which is interesting enough. But if you're doing the job right, like I'm doing here, a light spray will actually do 90% of it, and you're not contaminating all these other bearing areas or brake surfaces. Big kind of question out there. I do need to spray some areas if I need to get into those nicks and crannies, but for the most part, I can get most of this cleaned off by just flossing. Not the flossing, and not the other kind of flossing. So get your head out of the gutter. In any case, whatever that means, I don't know, Justin. Leave your crazy comments below. Yeah, so I'm going to get the frame cleaned off as much as possible. Also, I'll clean it with this Purple Power, but prior to doing the ceramic coating, I'm also going to do a surface cleaner. This preps the paint ready to adhere that ceramic coating, which is this liquid here, which you don't need to use a lot, and that'll actually it'll seal all those areas that can grab dirt and so forth, repel water. Also has UV protection, makes it wonderful and great. So we're going to do that. Wash the wheels in the water tank. No, it's not a water, it's a shop sink. And start the cleaner. But time's a ticking, and as any mechanic or a parent, time to take a little break and go get the kid from the bus stop. So excuse me for a moment, and we're going to come right back to doing some cleaning some parts and a little cleaning the frames, and we'll recap and put it all together and beautiful pictures at the end. Okay, after the walk, you will see me clean some parts. So here we have it. 3 bikes that are in for tune-ups from one family. This is the one I was featuring, and unfortunately, when you have a video issue and it doesn't record, you're basically just talking to yourself. In any case, this bike came out miraculous. Very well tuned shifts and stops, and as well its counterparts and the little guy here, and they turned out really well. So I can't complain whatsoever, and they should be really happy once they are ready to pick up and hit the trails on this beautiful day and weekend. And yes, on to the next. But before you go, thanks for hanging out with me, and please put comments down if you have any insights of these particular bikes or the tune-ups or any of that. And under the description as well, there's additional information to comb over. And if it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. And until next time, from the garage. And oh yeah, check out these awesome pictures after this.
little shop friend. Come on out. Oh, look at you. Yep. One hell of a ride. Where are you going? Oh. You can go for a bike ride, huh?